Hello, my dear friends. Today, I will tell you the story of a woman who became a light for the whole world. Her name was Helen Keller. Helen was blind. Helen was deaf. She lived in a world of darkness and silence, yet she became a writer, a teacher, a speaker, and a fighter for justice. She showed that even when life feels impossible, the human spirit can rise and shine. Her story is not only about her own life, it is also about courage, patience, and love. It is about the power of education and the gift of a kind teacher. It is about how one little girl, locked in silence, found her voice and changed millions of lives. And before we begin, let me remind you, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, English 7 Days. Now, let us walk together through the life of Helen Keller, a light in darkness. Helen Keller was born on June 27, 1880, in Tuscumbia, a small town in Alabama, United States. She was the first child of her parents, Arthur and Kate Keller. Her father had been a soldier in the Civil War, and her mother came from a well-known family. At first, Helen was a healthy baby. She laughed, she played, she made happy sounds. Her parents were proud of her. They dreamed of her future. But when Helen was only 19 months old, something terrible happened. She became very sick. Some doctors said it was scarlet fever. Others said it was meningitis. In those days, medicine was not as strong as it is today. Helen survived the sickness, but it left her blind and deaf. She could no longer see. She could no longer hear. For her, the world became silent and dark. Imagine being a small child who cannot see or hear. Imagine not knowing the words for mother, father, or water. Imagine feeling people move around you, but not understanding what they say. This was Helen's world. She lived in silence. She lived in darkness. Because she could not speak or understand language, Helen grew frustrated. She wanted to express herself, but could not. She often cried, screamed, or threw tantrums. She kicked and hit when she felt angry. She pulled at people's clothes when she wanted something. Her parents tried to help, but they did not know how. Some people told them Helen could never learn. They said she would always live like a wild child. But deep inside, Helen was intelligent. She wanted to connect. She wanted to know. She wanted to live. The arrival of a teacher. When Helen was 6 years old, her parents searched for help. They traveled to doctors and teachers. Finally, they met Alexander Graham Bell, the man who invented the telephone. Bell was also a teacher of deaf children. Bell advised them to contact the Perkins School for the Blind in Boston. The school sent a young teacher named Anne Sullivan to work with Helen. Anne was only 20 years old when she came to the Keller home in March 1887. She had grown up poor, almost blind herself. She had suffered many hardships, but she was strong and full of determination. No one knew it yet, but Anne Sullivan would change Helen's life forever. She would become not only a teacher, but also a friend, a guide, and almost like a second mother. The breakthrough moment. Anne started teaching Helen by spelling words into her hand. She used a finger alphabet called manual spelling. For example, she pressed Helen's hand and spelled the letters W-A-T-E-R. At first, Helen only copied the signs without meaning. She did not understand that the signs represented words. She thought it was just a game. Then, one day in April 1887, everything changed. Anne took Helen outside to the water pump. She put one of Helen's hands under the cool stream of water. With the other hand, She spelled Water. Suddenly, Helen's face lit up. She understood. The cool liquid flowing over her hand was water. The signs in her hand meant something real. That moment opened the door to language. Helen ran around, touching everything. She touched the earth, the tree, the house, and asked for their names. That day, she learned 30 new words. It was like a rebirth. The dark world had opened to light. After that, Helen learned very fast. She absorbed words like a thirsty traveler drinks water. She wanted to know everything. She wanted to name the world. Anne spelled into her hand day and night. Words for objects, words for actions, words for feelings. Soon, Helen could form sentences. Soon, she could read books in Braille, a system of raised dots for the blind. She even learned to write. She pressed letters onto paper with special tools. Later, she learned to type on a typewriter. Helen also wanted to learn to speak. For this, she put her fingers on Anne's lips, throat, and face to feel how sounds were made. Then she practiced making the same sounds. Her voice was not always clear, but she was proud she could talk. As a child, Helen was full of energy. She loved nature. She felt the warmth of the sun on her skin, the smell of flowers, the vibrations of footsteps on the ground. She played with animals. She climbed trees. She loved swimming. But her path was not easy. Some people doubted her. Some said she could never truly be educated. Others criticized Anne for her methods. Yet Helen kept learning. Her hunger for knowledge never stopped. And Anne stayed by her side, guiding her with patience and love. Higher education. Helen wanted more than basic learning. She dreamed of going to college. In 1900, she entered Radcliffe College in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which was connected to Harvard University. Imagine the challenge. Lectures given by professors, full of complex ideas. Helen could not see the blackboard. She could not hear the teacher. How could she study? Anne helped. She sat beside Helen in every class and spelled the lectures into her hand. Helen studied for hours each day, reading books in Braille or with the help of special typewriters. In 1904, Helen graduated with honors, becoming the first deaf-blind person in the world to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree. It was an extraordinary achievement. Newspapers around the world celebrated her. She became a symbol of hope for people with disabilities. Writing her story. Helen wanted to share her experiences. In 1903, while still in college, she published The Story of My Life. The book described her early years, her illness, her struggles, and the breakthrough with Anne at the water pump. It told the world how education and love gave her freedom. The book was translated into many languages. Readers everywhere were deeply moved. People who felt hopeless found courage. Parents of disabled children found hope. Helen later wrote many other books, essays, and articles. She wrote about faith, about education, about politics, and about peace. Her words shone like light in darkness. Helen was not only a writer. She was also a fighter for justice. She believed all people deserved dignity, no matter their disability, race, or wealth. She spoke for the blind and deaf. She supported schools, libraries, and training centers. She fought for women's rights and the right to vote. She fought for workers' rights and better conditions for the poor. She spoke against war and violence. Many people were surprised. They expected Helen to be quiet and grateful. Instead, she was brave and outspoken. She said, "The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision." Travels around the world. Helen did not stay only in America. She traveled to more than 30 countries with Sullivan, and later with Polly Thompson, another companion. She met kings, queens, presidents, and prime ministers. She gave speeches through interpreters. She visited schools for the blind and deaf. She inspired thousands of children who thought they had no future. In Japan, she was welcomed like a hero. In India, she met Mahatma Gandhi. In Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, she spread the message of hope and courage. Everywhere she went, she was proof that disability is not the end. As Helen grew older, she continued to work. She raised money for the American Foundation for the Blind. She wrote letters and gave talks. Sullivan remained with her until 1936, when Anne passed away. Helen was deeply sad, but she continued her mission with the help of others. Helen lived to be 87 years old. She passed away on June 1st, 1968, in her home in Connecticut, United States. By then, she had become one of the most admired women in the world. Her story had touched millions. The light she left behind. Helen Keller's life teaches us many lessons. She showed that no matter how dark life seems, we can find light. She showed that education is the key to freedom. She showed that kindness and patience can open the doors of silence. She turned her struggles into strength. She turned her pain into purpose. She turned her darkness into light for the world. Her story continues to inspire people, students, teachers, parents, and everyone who feels hopeless.